here. I'm going just to show my screen right now. So Pooja, if you think that there's any problem, just let me know, okay? And oh, by the way, I think that, yeah, I forgot. So I think that before we start, we have a poll. So Pooja is going to share a poll with you guys. So do a quick poll and then we can just go through our session. Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for your feedbacks. So Pooja is going to share the result with the team. So it's really good that you are enjoying like the exercises. Some of you guys said it's hard, so that's totally understandable. I mean, it takes time to learn like new stuff, right? And that is okay. And for those guys who didn't attend exercise, so you should better do, right? I mean that you can like listen to the of course sessions. You are free to do so, but I mean, if you can practice, it can help you a lot. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and let's see what we have here. Okay, cool. So I think that everyone can see my screen. So this is going to be our third session today. So you don't worry about like the screen like the right window. This is just prepared just for practice, and then we can just go through it together. So let's just start. Okay. So today we are going to talk about like a really interesting stuff. So one of them is going to be like the application of software engineering, and you will see that this is like really interesting, and probably you have heard of it in the real world. Then we will do a quick review on the global keyword, like the scope of the variable and how we can use the global to use the variable inside a function. Then we will talk about like the Boolean and if else statement, right? So we want to like different conditions, and based on those conditions, change our like code or like change like the program or the process. And then we talk about like the relational and logical operators. So one of like the cool application of the software engineering or software is in autonomous vehicles. So probably you have heard of autonomous vehicles, which is just a vehicle that doesn't need a driver, right? So there are a lot of the stuff going on, right? So we have like sensors, we have actuators, we have complex algorithms, but all of them can be combined together and like in terms of like this like like inside like a software, right? If you know software engineering, you know how you can take that concept, like take that information of sensors, right? And how you can implement it and create a software that can be used or implemented in a car, in a vehicle, right? So you can see like it's really like a hub that connects all these parts, like sensors, like data, like actuators, or like machine learning systems, right? All of them are to execute software. And there are a lot of stuff going on. So you have like the sensors that, for example, can get data about like the position of the vehicles. You may have something like ultrasonic sensors. All of this information will be handled, right? So it is not just, I'm just saying, it is not just programming. Of course, like you need to know some sort of like probably like algorithms, math, and or like whatever. But at the time, after like you realize all of that, and then you realize how you can create these connections and how you can get advantage from those data, then you need to know the software like the software concept, because you need to know how to work with software, how to create the software based on those how to create a software to use those data to help you like to create like this autonomous vehicle. That's it. So of course, like you may find a lot of other application. If you find something interesting, you can share with others in the chat or on Discord. So let's talk about like the scope of the variables. So we discussed in the last session that if we want to use a particular variable inside a function, we have to either define that variable inside the function, or we should define it outside of the function, but use the global keyword, right, to get access to that variable. So for example, this is just a simple example, right? So you can see we define x equal 10 outside the function, outside this def, which is the beginning of like the term definition. So you define x here, or you set x to the value 10 out of the function, and then you will use the global keyword and say global x, which means that whenever you see x here inside this function, the computer knows that that x that you're talking about is this x10, right? So it's going to change that. So I can, of course, like copy it here if you want, or just do a quick copy thing here just to see how it works. So I'm going just to make a comment. Then I have global x, right? Then you have background white and x equal 1. Do you remember? This was just a shortcut, right? And then you can create the circle which has like the x coordinates of the center, the y coordinates of the center, right? You need two like information like the x and y for the center, and then the diameter, right? So if I run this, you can see like there is a black circle like moving from left to right. But now if I use this x here, since the computer like the way that this function draw is written is that it's going to run it again and again. So whenever it's going to run from the beginning, it sets x equal 10. So every time that you run, it's x equal 10, and then you add 1 to it. So it's not going to move that much. So it's just 10 and 11. So probably you should see it's not moving. So let's see. You see, it's just a structure because you are changing x, but every time that you start from the beginning, right? Again and again, you reset x, you make x equal 10 again. Yeah, so there's also like another cool example, just if you want to know. So for example, you can say x equal 4, right? Then you can print x, right? Then you can say okay, I'm not going to talk about that because I forgot that you haven't learned the function. So I will talk about function later, probably in the future, and then I will give you this example. So let's forget about that. For now, I think you're good. I think you need you need to know the function to understand this example that I was about to say. But for now, I think you're good. So let's move on to the next slide. So now we're going to talk about like the Booleans and comparisons, like how we can compare things in program, right? For example, if a number is bigger than another number or something is equal to something else. So Boolean is a type of like the variable, like we define different times, right? Types. We talked about like the integer. We talked about the float. We talked about the string, which was just like a fancy word for like sentences or words or letters, right? And then this is like a new type. We call it Boolean. So Boolean is just true or false, right? So something is true or something is false, right? So for example, we all know that 4 is greater than 3, right? So if you run this, right, you see the computer says it's true, right? That is some sort of like a Boolean value, right? Or if you say, for example, 4 less than 3, you see false, right? So these are a new type, and we call them Boolean, right? So you can use them assign them like to a variable. You can say, for example, is it summer? And then, right, you can say false because this is not summer, right? And then you can say, okay, so print is it summer, right? It's just false. And one thing that you need to remember is that the F in false and the T in true most often should be capital letter, right? And we talked about that before, that like most of the programming languages, and for example, Python here, they are case sensitive. So if you see something, for example, is with capital F or with a small f, make sure that you use the same format, like use the capital letter or a small letter whenever you see something. Let's move on. So we have different type of like operations. So right. So these are something like, I mean, it's like really easy to understand. Like this symbol means less than, this means less than or equal to. This is greater than, this is greater than or equal to, and this is equal. And this means not equal, right? So these two things must be new to you. So let's try them out here. So let's say, for example, I want to try 4 is greater than 2, right? It is true, it is correct. 4 is greater than or equal to. It is still correct because 4 is greater than 2, right? And if I change these two to 4, 4 is greater or equal to 4, right? Because 4 is equal to 4, and we consider this equal sign here, right? So it should be okay. So it is true, right? Now we have equal sign. This is just like compare two values, right? This is true. So let's say, for example, I set x equal 4, right? And then I want to compare x. Compare x with, for example, a value 2, right? So you see the difference here. This one equal sign, right, is when you want to assign a value to a particular variable. So this means x equal 4 means that, hey, put the value 4 in the variable x, right? Or set the variable x to 4. But this means something else. This means that compare the value of x to 2, right? So if I want to check this, this is false, right? Because x was 4 before. And now this is not equal to, which is correct because 4 is not equal to. So it should be true. Okay. So I think that you're good. So now we want just to talk about like different like stuff about like how to compare them, and we already did. So we talked about like the print 1 less than 4, it should be true, right? And a is equal -5, which is print, for example, a is greater than or equal to 0, which is false because negative is less than 0, right? And then we have this one, which is x0, y 57, and they are definitely not equal, right? So when you say x not equal to y, that is correct because they are not equal. And you can also say, for example, I don't know, let's say you can say, let's see, you can say print, you can say x equal to y equal 4, then you can say x is greater than y, right? So we don't know that, right? So this is just, you want to say this is true, true or false. You can say, okay, you remember this format? We put f here, and you want to put something here. So you can say, okay, x greater than y. This is what you want to try, right? X is greater than y. So let's see. X is greater than y, false, right? I mean, that even if you wanted to use the value of x and y, you can just put bracket, cubic bracket here, cubic bracket here, and then you put x and y. I think it's a good way to practice the previous stuff that you learned, right? So try to practice as you learn new things. Try to practice the previous stuff. So we are good here. So let's move on. Now we're talking about like the combining conditions, right? So let's say you want to combine two conditions. So let's say you wanted to compare two things at the same time. So for example, you want to say 5 greater than 3 and 6 greater than 3, which makes sense, right? True, right? So in AND, right, which is one of the keyword in Python, it is true, right? If all of those statements are true, right? So if, for example, this one is true and this one is false, then the answer is false. For example, in the second example, you can see that 5 is greater than 3 and 6 is less than 3. So let's try it here. For example, you can say x is equal 5 bigger than 3, right? And then let's try this first, which is true, right? Because 5 is greater than 3. Now you can say 5 is greater than 3 and 6 is greater than 3, right? Let's see. The answer should be still true because both of them are true, right? So again, when you use and, all of the statements should be true. Then you will see true. But if I change like one of them, so let's say, for example, I add another one and say 0 is bigger than 1. So now you see that the last one is false. And that is enough to make this x false. Okay. So the or means you need at least one of the statements to be true, right? So if any of the Boolean statements are true, then you can say my statement, like my variable is true. But if all of them are false, then of course all of them are false, right? So it should be false, right? You cannot get true when all of them are false. So you can say 5 is equal greater than 3, or 6 is less than 3, right? So in this case, this one is true. This one is false, but we don't care about this false. Why? Because this one is true. So that is enough because they have or here, right? And then we have 5 less than 3 or 6 less than 3. Both of them are false here. And of course, you get false, right? So not is just the opposite. So not is another keyword, and we just use it to just to each or like change the Boolean value. So if it is true, we make it false. If it is false, we make it true. So let's say I have, for example, x equal 6 greater than 3, 4, 3, or 5, 6 less than 0, right? So we know that x is true, right? Perfect. So we know that x is true. Now let's say I want to create a new variable y and call it not x. So we know that the x was true. Not x means that the not true should be false. So let's print y here. Perfect. So you see, we can easily change them. Of course, like you can see the example, like it says not 6 less than 3, so it should be true, right? Or not 6 greater than 3 should be false. Okay. So now this is just a simple example. This is just an example to help you understand the concept, right? So like, for example, it says programming is fun and programming is useful. And then you can see it's true, right? Because each statement is true, right? Of course, someone can say programming is not fun. So it can be subjective. But in programming, usually we are not subjective. Like we have some sort of like a logic behind our statements. But that is okay. We just need to understand the concept here. In the second one, we have Halloween has candy and Halloween has Easter egg, right? So one of them is false. And since one of them is false, we cannot say this one and this one because then, I mean, that you can say, but I mean that the whole statement becomes false, right? Because one of them is false. And then here in the last one, oops, I think we jumped, sorry. And then in the last one, we have Halloween has candy, right? Or Halloween has Easter egg. And we don't care about if one of them is false, right? Because if one of them is true, then the whole statement becomes true. Okay. I'm going now to this is just some sort of like a summary of what we discussed. So we said that if you have two things, two statements, right? And then both of them are true, if you use and, so let's talk about only this part. So let's forget about the other part of the table. Let's focus on this part. So we have the and here, right? So if you have true and true, you get true. If you have true or false, should get false. Why? Because in and, you need both of them to be true, right? Okay, so we have false and true, false, false and false, false. So now let's focus on these two, right? And the last one, and oops, sorry, and this column, right? So let's skip this column, right? So we have true and true is true because it's all right. So we need at least one of them to be true. So true, false, true, false, true. And then false, false, we have false. And finally, we have this table, right? Which is basically just showing like the like how the not works. So if you have true, it becomes false. If you have false, it becomes true, right? Perfect. So now we're talking about a very interesting and very useful and important thing, and this is if statement. So in the if statement, we try to separate the process. So we want to say if something happens, do this. If something else happens, do that, right? So it's like, for example, you can say if the weather is rainy, take the umbrella, right? Or use the umbrella. If not, then okay, don't use the umbrella, right? So you need a way to do that in the programming. And that is like what we do. We use the if, right? So if some condition is true, then do something. Then if not, then do something else or do nothing, right? So here you can see in this flowchart, in this diagram here, we have if statement. And if it is true, it do something. If it is false, right, it do, for example, like the code after the if statement. And then we will see how it works. But this is just the concept, right? Okay, so this is just a simple example. So you can see that it says, for example, let's say you have like the temperature of the house, like can go up or down, right? But if it is good, if it goes down and if it becomes, for example, less than 20, right? You want to write a program that turn on the furnace, right? You want to like warm up the house. So you can say, okay, if house temperature is less than 20, in that case, I'm going to turn on the furnace. But in other cases, you don't want to do that, right? For example, say the house temperature is 50, right? You don't want like to make it warmer, right? And it is important to note that if we have an indent here, right? If you don't use indent, the computer doesn't understand. So I'm going just to put it here. So let's say I'm going just to create a simple example here. So let's say x is 5, right? So you know that x is 5. Then you can say, okay, if x is bigger than 6, then you can say print x is bigger than 6, right? And this should work, right? Because the x is, sorry, I mean that of course the code works, but I mean that this print is not going to be executed because you're not going to see that because x is 5 and less than 6. So let's try. So you see nothing, right? Because the computer, as soon as it gets to this line, knows that it shouldn't go to inside this if block, right? Because the indent means that whatever you put here is related to this if condition. So whenever this if condition becomes true, the computer is going to run this. But now if I change this, for example, to let's say 100, right? 100 is bigger than 6, right? Now, of course, you can see, hey, x is bigger than 6. I mean, if you want to make it cooler, you can say, okay, I'm going just to put f here, and x is bigger than 6. Whatever value that you have here is bigger than 6. 100 is bigger than 6, right? Now, let's say you want to do something else, right? So let's say, for example, you want to try, for example, another condition. Let's say x is bigger than 50. Print f is x is bigger than 50. So what's happening here is that the computer goes through this line first, right? If x is bigger than 6, then make a decision. If it is bigger than 6, goes to this line and execute this one, right? Then after it finishes, there is nothing else, right? Because the indent is going to be removed and you start from the beginning. So it means that the program continues to this line. Now it checks this condition, right? Because that's the new condition. It says if. It's a new if. So now it tries to check this one and run this one if the condition becomes true. So let's see. So you see, both of them are true. So x is bigger than 6, x is bigger than 50, right? But you can say, okay, x is bigger than 1000, run this one. So of course, it's not going to run this one, right? Because x is 100 less than 1000. So now you see, it's going to skip this one. But as soon as the computer gets to this line, it's going to print this one. And of course, be careful about the column here. So in if condition, in if block, you need the if keyword, you need a condition to check whether something is true or not. You need a column, right? This column shows that this is like the end of the condition. And then after that, you're going to start your if block, like the block that is related to that if condition. So we use like the indent, and that's it. Okay. So this is like a very like cool way like to show like how we can use if a statement like in drawing things. So I can see, for example, we can draw a line right here. Then we have this condition, right? If mouse x, which is the x coordinates of your mouse, right? If it is less than 250, which means that you are on the left side of like this window, right? Because if it is bigger than 200, because I think like the width is 500, so this 250 is just half of it. So in this case, you can see that if the condition becomes true, if your mouse is less than 250 on this side, you can see a red ball. That's 255, right? RGB. But as soon as your mouse goes to the right, the computer doesn't understand this signal anymore, right? So you don't see anything. So let's try it here. So let's say I have a window size of 300. I'm going to make the background gray. I think it should work. So let's put it after the size. After size. So we have we also have a draw line 250, 0, 250, 200, not 250, but I just want to, let's see, I want to consider like half of it. So I'm going to 150, 0, 150, 300, right? And then I'm going to just to do fill style, red. I think it should work. Let's see. And if it doesn't work, I'm going just to change it to RGB value, right? Then you have mouse X, mouse Y, and 30. What was the 30? The diameter, right? So let's see. Okay, I think that it's because I'm sharing. It's really it's some sort of like a slow motion. Let me see if I can run it one more time. I think it's because of this slow motion thing. That oh, I forgot the if statement. The very important thing that I forgot. So here that was the if statement. So if mouse X, because now you have circle here 250. But I think because like I'm sharing the screen, it acts like this. So it becomes like some sort of slow on my end. But you should try it on your end and probably should work. But let us know in the chat if it doesn't, okay? And okay. So now we're going to talk about like the if-else statement. So this means that you want to like try something else, right? So you want to say if something is true, do this, and you don't want to you don't want to just leave things. You want to say that okay, if something is not happening, do something else, right? So that is like the way we do it. So you say that if condition is true, do something. Else means that that condition is not true, right? Then do the different things, right? For example, this is just a really cool example. You can say if you're driving, then send calls to voicemail, then otherwise I let them through. Okay. So now we're going to talk about like the order of execution. Okay, this is like really weird. I don't like this one. Okay, so let me see if I can get it. Okay, cool. I'm going just to Okay. So let's continue, right? So we have like, we want like to talk about like the order of execution. So we talked that whenever the computer gets to the if statement, right? It checks if it is true, it's going to execute that line, right? If it is not true, it's going to run the else statement, right? So it's really important. If the condition becomes true, it's only going to execute the statement after the if, not the else, right? It's going to skip that. So you can see that in this diagram. If the condition becomes true, it's going to execute the statement for that if, not for the else, right? So you can see that after the condition becomes true, after executing the if statement, it's going to continue and run the rest of the code, and it's going to skip this else part. So for example, let's see it here. I'm going just to try a simple example. So for example, you can say x is 100. Then you can say if x is bigger than 50, print x is bigger than 50, right? Else print x is less than or equal to 50, right? So it says x is bigger than 50. So you can see whenever this condition becomes true, it runs this, right? But it doesn't run this one, right? So whenever you see else, this means that this is related to a if that you already defined before. So this is just a mirror ball. So probably if I run this, probably you will see like again like those repeated circles. But I'm going just to explain it here for you guys. So this is again, you draw the line as I did before, right? It depends on like the size of like your window. It is 500 by 500. It's 250, 250, 500. Then we have here, if mouse x is less than 250, we create a receiver. So it's the same as the previous one, right? But now we have a new thing. We have a new else. If it is not less than 250, so if this condition becomes false, it means that you are on the right side of the window, right? Then in this case, you are trying to create a similar circle, but you are trying to add some sort of green. So that's why you can see that like the color of the like this red, right? Gets faded. And then you have like this circle 500 minus mouse x because you are on the right. So let's say you are at 400, right? But you don't want your circle to be here. If your mouse of x is 400, you want your center of circle to be at 100 on the other side. So that's why we have 500 minus mouse x. So let's try it. I think that we're going to see the same problem, but that's okay. So let me see if I can try it on my end here. I'm going just to copy paste to save some time. So you have to have an indent here. Okay. And we have a gray, and we also have draw a line 250, 0, not 250, 150, 0, 150, 150. And this should be half of it. So it should be 150. And this should be 150, right? Cool. I think that we're good to go. So let's try. Okay. Okay, this should be 300. Sorry. So now the line is complete. But again, you can see like the problem here because now you can see like as I move to the right, the circle is stop here. But you see there is one on the left. But I think like there is a problem, I think. And this one should be, sorry, 300. This is like my window size.
I think if you put the background in the draw function, it should show only one circle.
Sorry, what?
I think if you put the line for background, like the background gray, just into the draw function,
oh, okay.
It should work.
Okay, let's see. Oh, cool. That is interesting. Okay, so I'm going just to put it here. Okay. Do you know why, Pooja?
I think it's because you need to draw the background over again, just over
Okay.
each circle, so the old circles don't stay on the screen.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, that was interesting. Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. So yeah, I didn't know that. So that's good to know. So we have like to put the background here. That's good to know. Thank you, Pooja. So we're going to have a quick poll. So this is just a quick question. So we want to talk about like what color is the background and ball when mouse of X is 100. I'm going to just put it here so you can see the question. Let's see. Oops. Sorry. So just try to understand if mouse of X is 100, what condition becomes true. Okay, I think.
I'll close it in about 10 seconds.
Okay, so I'm going just to talk about like what's happening here. So now, if mouse of X is 100, so if you set the value of mouse X to 100, this first condition becomes false, right? So now the computer moves to the else statement, right? Because this one becomes false. So now it says, okay, background becomes blue. So the background is blue. The fill style is green. But now that is not the end of the story because we have to continue, right? That is just the if block. So this part is the if block. So you see this indent. So whenever the indent is gone, it means that you are out of the if block. So now after the computer runs this block, it starts from here, right? Now the fill style becomes yellow. So you had green before, but now it becomes yellow. So your background is blue, but now the fill style is yellow at the end of this program. Okay, but feel free to try this like here on the like setup draw and then see how it works for you guys. Okay, so we're going to send you to the breakout room to try to do this exercise. This is just trying to create a sticker to move it from left to right, right? Okay.
I think everyone should be back.
Okay. So let me share the screen here. There we go. Okay. So this was like the exercise. I think we have, yeah. So the idea is you want like to move like the ball from left to right, and then whenever like it hits the right side, you want to start from the beginning, right? So which means that after you increase like the X value of the circuit, because you want to move it, right? You want to increase its center, like the X value of the center, right? You want to increase it, goes to the right, then at some point you have to reset it. You want to reset it to its initial value here, right? So on the right, this is just one way to do it. Maybe you have like other ways. So we'll start from here. You can put radius 20 here, or you can just use 20, right? You don't need to create a new variable for radius. But again, the idea for the variable is that if you want to change the size of the circle, you can easily do that here, right? You can just change the value radius here from 20 to 10 or 30, right? If you don't like it, you can just put 20 here. You can just say 20, and whenever you see radius, you can put 20, right? So let's get back here. Okay, so now the initial value for x is the radius, right? Because if the x is radius, right, it means that it starts exactly here. Because if I set the y value of the circle to radius, it start from here, which has like the distance of radius to the top, and from the left, you want to make sure that like the starting is at x, which is the radius, right? Then you're going to call the global, to use the global to make sure that the value, like the variable x here, right, is the same variable that you defined before here. So you create a circle, right? You are going to increment it. I'm going to put this one here. I think that this is easier to see what's going on here. So I'm going to increase x because I want to move the ball, but at some point, the ball is going to hit the right side, right? So in this case, you're saying that, okay, so if, for example, the value for the x, which is the x coordinate of the center, right, minus radius becomes bigger than width, right? In this case, it means that you are actually at the end of like this window. So you're going to set x to radius. So you start from the beginning. So whenever the program runs again, start from the beginning. And yeah, okay, so let's see. Yeah, I'm going just to erase this. I don't want to see it. Okay, perfect. So let's move on. So what is if, elif, else statement? So if, elif, else statement means that you want like to try to consider like, so for example, you can say, I want to do this if this happens. And you can say, okay, if this doesn't happen, then you have else, right? But after else, you may have another if, right? But you don't want that. It becomes really messy. You can say, okay, I have, for example, in this case, I have x bigger than 50. But if it is not bigger than 50, it means it is less than 50, right? But what if I want to create another condition? If x is now bigger than 25, print x is, for example, bigger than 25, right? Oops. And then else, print whatever, right? X is less than 25, right? But you see, it becomes like nested, like you have like if else, and you have if else, you have if else. So another way to do this is to create elif. You are saying that, okay, if this happen, if this condition becomes true, do this. If not, I'm going to create another condition, right? Before I finish this if block, I'm going to say, okay, elif, which is just else if, right? Elif x, let's say, bigger than 25. Now print something, whatever. Then you have else, right? Print hey, right? So now, for example, x is 100, so it's going to run the first statement only, right? So now let's say, for example, your x is less than 50 but bigger than 25, so 40. So let's see, x is bigger than 25. Of course, a better statement should be bigger than 25 and less than 50, of course, right? But this is just to help you understand the concept here, right? X is bigger than 25. So it's going to skip this one, but after it reaches this line, this is true, right? So it's going to run this line, and that's it, because you have elif else statement. So as soon as you get one of them true, you're going to execute that statement and you're going to skip the rest, and then you'll continue the code. So you can say print done, right? So it's going to run this one, skip this one, but since it executes this one, it's going to skip this one as well. And that's it for this block. And then you're going to see the last statement here, which is not in the if block, right? Perfect. So again, we wanted to see how we can like combine like the logical operators as well, right? So we talked about like the and, so you can use not something and not something, right? It's just you are trying to combine. It's like ingredients, right? You can create a different recipe, right? So for example, you can say, okay, I have not of this one and not of this one. You can say not of this one or this one. You can say not of this one or only this one, right? So there are a lot of ways to combine things, right? So it depends on the problem that you are dealing with. So this is, for example, one of the cool example. So it says that if mouse of x is bigger than 250 and mouse y is 250, right? So if my window size is 500, 500, right? This gray window, then bigger than 250, bigger than 250 means that you are here on the bottom right, right? So now whenever the circle comes here, it becomes green. So you see it is 255, right? But now in other places, it says else. So in other places, no matter where you are, other than this square, it becomes blue. Now we can try to use elif to change this color in other quadrants as well. So this is a quick question, right? So we have the mouse X 150, we have mouse Y 50, right? And now we want to see what color is the circle. So let's see. So just go through the if block and then see which one is correct.
I'll close the poll in around 15 seconds.
Okay, so let's see. We have the mouse X 150, mouse Y 50, right? So whenever you see these two variables, you should see them as 150 and 50, right? So in the first one, if you see some statement, you want to make sure that you want to see if the whole statement becomes true or false, right? It has and the and becomes true if both of them become true. So let's see. The first one is 150 bigger than 100, so it is true. Now what about the second one? Mouse Y is not bigger than 100 because it is 50, which is false. So it's going to skip this one. Now for the second one, we have elif, right? So it means that now the program runs this one. So 150 is less than 100. It is false. But should we skip it? No, we have to take a look here. It is or. So we still have a chance, right? If one of them is true, the whole statement becomes true, right? So now let's see, mouse Y is less than 100, and that is true. So the whole statement becomes true, which means the ball becomes green, right? It's going to skip this one, right? because as soon as you see one of the condition becomes true, it's going to skip the rest of the if block. Perfect. So the ball becomes green. So we're going to send you guys to the breakout room to just create something like that. So create like different colors for the balls in different locations. Okay, so I know that like the timing, like the schedule is tight for you guys, so it might be hard to go through like the whole code in the breakout time. But I'm just going to walk you through like the solution quickly, right? So first of all, like we have like the background, we have like the two lines, like the one of the horizontal, the vertical line to divide this window to four parts. Then we have like to create different if, elif statements, right? So you want to make sure, because you have like two code, like you need two information, like the x coordinate and the y coordinate for the center of the circle, right? So you want to make sure that whenever your ball is it's y and x coordinate, both of them should be checked. So for example, in this one, you have this one and this one, right? So you want to check the mouse x and the mouse y. You want to check this one and this one. So you see, you have to use the keyboard and here, right? To combine the this Boolean statement. Now, for example, I'm just going to talk about like the first one and skip the rest. So for example, for this one, it says mouse x is less than 250, mouse y is less than 250, which means that you are basically in this quadrant, right? On the top left, because both of your x and y are less than 250. Remember that the x0 and y0 was the top left corner of the window, right? And that's it. So you want to check each quadrant, and then you have to use elif, else, and that's it. And then at the end, we're going to create this circle. So I think it should be easy for you guys like to go through it and then do it yourself. I'm going just to skip this part. So we learned about like the mouse x, mouse y, which is basically the x and y coordinates of your mouse, like the cursor as you like move your mouse in the screen. Now we have also another variable that is already defined, so you don't need to worry about it. And it is called mouse is pressed, right? So it can somehow detect whenever you click the mouse, like, right? So it says it is true, and whenever you don't click it, it is false, right? So this is how it works. So you don't need to worry about like how this mouse is pressed written. So assume that someone else already wrote that for you, and that is how it works. So what you need to know is that it only takes the Boolean value, which means that it's only true or false, right? So this is, for example, a cool example. So let's say, for example, you have a window and you want to like see if, for example, you can write a program that whenever you click the mouse, it changes like the color of the circle and change the text, right? So this is like the way we do it. So we know that the mouse is pressed is a Boolean, right? So we say that it is true or false. So we can consider it as some sort of a condition, right? So this is some sort of a condition here. We're saying that if mouse is pressed, so if it is true or false, then it can make a decision. If it is true, it's going to run this one, right? So it's going to create a text, and then it's going to make this red, the color red. Then else, if you don't click anything, so which means the default value, I can say that's some sort of like a default setting that you don't click anything. Then in that case, then it says mouse is not pressed, and then flip side white, right? And then you create a circle. So I'm going to write it here. So I'm going to, so my windows should be, for example, let's say 300, 300. I'm going to create a background gray here. And this is, let's say, this is 500, 500. So this is why we see 250, 250 here for the XY. I'm going to use 150, 150. which put the circle right in the center of my window, right? And then I'm going to create this is right. If mouse is pressed, then do this. I'm going to copy it because it takes me time. Okay. I'm going to copy that. Right. And now don't forget that these 250 and 250, or this like 400, 250, these are just the XY of the text, which is just the, I think it is just the top left corner of the text. So for example, if my circle is 150, 150, and let me fit 400, I think it's easier. 400, 500, 500. 500, I'm going to put it 250, 250. Let's make it big so you can see the whole screen here. 250, 250 here. Then I'm going to do it like 250 here, 250 here, and that should work. So let's see. So we have this one. This is really small. So maybe I should change it to, let's say, I don't know, 100. Cool, right? So by the way, you can see like this is white, and you have a text here, mouse is not pressed. Then if I click it, it becomes mouse is pressed, right? And that's it. So I'm going to just put it back here. And that's it for this session, I think. So just a reminder. So you need to attend at least 6 out of 8 sessions, right, to be eligible for the certificate at the end of this program. And this doesn't include session 0 because after that we have like 8 sessions. So that's it. So again, you can just submit the exercises, right? And then by the way, don't forget that you can discuss your challenges on the Discord, right? I'm just going to remind you that we are available on the Discord if you have like any questions. And it's better just to put them both of them on the single file. Okay, so that's it. I think we're good to go, and I think that you're going to have your last breakout room with your mentors, and then you will come back, and then we're going just to finish this session. So Pooja is going, yeah, okay, there we go.